over the course of 4 years, I was interviewed by investigative journalists working on a project. And part of my interview, I did 2 interviews with the author of this chapter of this book called Unjust Transition, The Future for Fossil Fuel Workers. It was extensively done. The fact that I'm just like a tidbit in the book giving a perspective of the citizen who deals with the refinery, quoted a couple of times.
So you're not interviewed because you're on the Clean Energy Show. It's
I-
because you live by the refinery.
Right. In fact, this probably predates our show, even though we started 4 years ago. Because, it happened over 4 years, and I kept waiting for this, what's going to come of this. I want to learn about this, what they're going to uncover. And it never really happened. But this book is out, and it's got a chapter in it on the environmental effects of that refinery, which is inside our city limits now. It's not a great place to put a refinery. They put billions of dollars in expanding it, 15, 20 years ago. And they didn't say, hey, maybe we should move it away from the city. They said, yeah, it's convenient there. Let's just put it there. And basically, it's a problem. It's a big problem. And it's among the worst refineries in Canada. I think it's got the worst environmental record. It's got the least checks on it because our government just says, hey, jobs are important. Do what you like. And it's been like that since they started it 100 years ago almost.
And as I like to point out, around 30 years ago, there were some emissions that came out of the refinery that peeled the paint off of cars. And for years, you would see cars driving around with the paint peeled off. They gave settlements to people who it happened to, but some people just kept the money and left the cars just with peeling paint and drove those around for years.
I don't know if that was the same incident, but it's around the same time that there was a sour gas dump that poisoned a school, an elementary school, and made them sick. I mean, okay, here's the context of why we're talking about this on our show. It gets even worse. The sting of what they're doing is even worse when we know that it's unnecessary. Now, people who are new to our show may not realize the things that we realize because we've talked about and we're constantly looking at what's going on around the world. We drive EVs. We know that there's a better way, that it's not a compromise, that the EVs are actually a better experience overall. For lots and lots of reasons, and we don't even think about the environment necessarily when we buy one. It's not the top 1 or 2 things that we think about that motivates us to buy it. So Patricia Elliott was the author of this book, or this chapter rather, chapter 5 in this book, and she interviewed me and others multiple times just for these quotes. Like, I can't imagine the amount of research and thoroughness they put in, because the refinery is a very litigious place that shuts things down, and that's one of the horrors that happens in this book. The book argues that left unchecked, corporations will transfer the costs and burdens of the necessary transition to a fossil fuel free future to workers, because they just negotiated their contract and they said, well, we're transitioning, we got to cut your salary, we can't have your benefits because it's transitioning, which is a BS excuse. But in chapter 5, it examines the environmental record of the refinery and the potential health effects, and I got permission from the author to read the first part of the chapter to our audience, which I'm going to do now. This is chapter 5 of Unjust Transition. The chapter is called Ungovernable: How a Refinery Became Too Big to Fail and What It Means to the People of Saskatchewan. Patricia W. Elliott, with files from Caitlin Schropp and Julia Peterson. The Secret Box. In the archives of Saskatchewan's Court of Queen's Bench, that's the judicial branch of our government, in Regina, in the archives of Saskatchewan's Court of Queen's Bench, the provincial government in Regina, sits a brown cardboard box sealed with clear packing tape. A clue to its contents is revealed in red felt pen lettering on one side. File sealed as per order of Keene, J on October 13th, 2016. Cooperators viz. City of Regina. From court records, we know the box contains details of a major hazards risk assessment report commissioned in 2012 by the by the Cooperative Refinery Complex at the request of the City of Regina. From From a released executive summary, we know it contains details of smokestack plumes that drift over residential areas. We also know the city of Regina was agreeable to publicly releasing the full report in response to a journalist's Freedom of Information FOI request, and we know that the refinery's legal counsel objected strenuously enough to ensure this would never happen. As for what major risks might have been revealed, that part is sealed. For the city, its residents, and the refinery, the secret box is bound by codependencies as sticky as packing tape. If you peel back a piece, something might tear. In this light, the CRC, that's the refinery, presents a governance challenge that municipal and provincial authorities the CRC, the refinery complex, that is, the co-op refinery complex, presents a governance challenge that municipal and provincial authorities struggle to surmount. Official records suggest the refinery has been left to largely self-monitor its pollutant emissions with limited regulatory involvement or major penalties for transgressions. Beyond cost compensation for stressing the municipal water system, that is, this reflects a wider picture of Saskatchewan's oil and gas sector, where direct provincial oversight of environmental impacts has been gradually reduced in favor of industry self-regulation that, in the words of the Ministry of Environment presentation, invites environmental management aligned with a growing economy. The refinery has successfully propagated a general consensus that its operations are too crucial to the local economy to suffer any hindrance. You can't survive without me is the mantra of domination in a relationship. It is how secrets and transgressions accumulate unaddressed. What does this mean for the promise of a just transition? When it comes to the health of citizens, this is a crucial question to consider. And then it quotes me. But you don't want to hear that. It's not necessary. I've talked about it before on the show. The refinery is often by far the worst emitter of bad things of any refinery in Canada. It's a heavy read, Brian, this book, and particularly when it affects you and your family's health. My family has suffered health issues that could be, attributed to the refinery. I'll get into that later. Because it's a heavy read, I had ChatGPT summarize the chapter so that it was super clear to a 12-year-old. And this is what it wrote, Brian.
Nice, okay.
Imagine you have a group of grown-ups making sure companies don't harm nature too much because that's bad for our planet. But lately, these grown-ups have been saying, you know what? You companies can watch over yourselves. Just make sure you don't mess up with nature while you're making money. Now there's a big factory that makes a lot of important stuff, and most people around think this factory is super important because it helps everyone make money and live better. So even if the factory might hurt nature a little, people are okay with it because they believe the factory is really important for their town's money and jobs. Does that make sense, Brian?
Yeah, I'm older than 12, so yeah, that dumbed it down nicely.
The point is, people, if you don't spoon feed it to them, they don't care. They just go on with their lives. People should care about this. It affects their health. This concerns me greatly since I live and breathe near the refinery. Every night before I go to bed, I check the wind direction to see if I can open my window. Because for whatever reason, it's hot in my bedroom. I've got a router in here, and it produces heat like a kettle. You know, it's just churning out heat while my daughter surfs the internet all night. It also frustrates me because I know there's a better way. That's the thing. It gets worse when you know that we don't even need this damn refinery anymore. It can go to hell. But money and influence get in the way of me living a long cancer-free life, Brian. Money and influence. So living near refineries like the co-op refinery complex poses significant health risks due to over 50 recognized harmful substances. One's bad. 50 is terrifying, including toxic gases and heavy metals. The CRC, with a capacity of 130,000 barrels per day, was the fourth highest in toxin emissions among Canadian refineries in 2019, releasing almost 20,000 tons of pollutants. It also leads in fugitive emissions. contributing to 48% of Canada's total fugitive emissions in 2021. That is to say, it burps and belches things it's not supposed to. It has leaks. And with all the refineries that there are in Canada, our meager refinery here, right in the city, belches out almost half of them. These are VOCs, volatile organic compounds, which are linked to cancer, accounting for 36% of Canada's refinery VOC emissions from 2011 to 2021, this one refinery. In 2021, the refinery was a major emitter of hazardous VOCs, including N-hexane. That doesn't sound good. I'm not a scientist.
I don't know what that is, but it doesn't sound good.
Which can cause neurological damage, including N-hexane, which can cause neurological damage well, I admit it, and was half of Canada's refinery emissions at 203 tons. That's absurd. Okay, so it has led emissions of toluene and benzene, known neurotoxins, and cancer-causing agents. You know, it's always great when a substance causes cancer and neurological damage, with 58 tons and 11 tons respectively. This is tons of bad things. This isn't a pill jar full of bad stuff. This is tons of it. This included the highest emissions of N-hexane, ethylbenzene, naphthalene, and cyclohexane in Canada, underlying its substantial contribution to toxic air pollutants. And if none of this has your attention, consider that a 20-minute sour gas leak on February 27th, 1989, caused children at a nearby school to be overcome with nausea. That nearby school could have been the one next to my house here. I don't know. Records don't go back that far. If I get to talk to the author, I'll ask her if she knows. Sour gas is one of the oil industry's most feared emissions, capable of causing near instant death in enclosed spaces at high concentration. So they're just damn lucky they didn't kill a whole school of kids. Long-term low-level exposure may contribute to low blood pressure, headaches, eye inflammation, and staggered gait, and neurological symptoms including psychological disorders. Further, chronic exposure may be more serious for children because of their potential longer latency period, raising additional concerns for schools and daycares near refineries. And like I said, the reason why I quoted in the books is I live at 1.6 kilometers away, like a mile away, and all too often I wake up gagging. I like fresh air, but if the wind shifts or if it stops blowing altogether, the refinery plume just spills out in all directions, and I'm overcome with it. And I don't know how long I've been sleeping, breathing that. But let me tell you, it kept me awake last night because I kept wondering, do I smell something? Is that it? Should I go close my window? Is it too late? And meanwhile, I don't use any of their freaking products. Aside, if I go on an airline flight, I'll use their kerosene for jet fuel, okay? But I haven't done that. I would if I could, I suppose. But I drive EVs. Our family is a complete EV family now. We have solar on our roof. We have a well-insulated passive solar house for the heck of it, because it seemed like a good idea to use technology to save money and live beyond our means, and it's working. I'd like to have the author on the podcast. I don't know if she can or not. She hasn't confirmed yet. It's possible, she's scared legally to do certain things, or maybe she's just too busy. But if we can, I'm going to have a special episode of the podcast to talk about this, because Erin Brockovich, this is 100 of her. This is a huge deal, because the refinery cancer effects is shown to go something like 32 kilometers, which is the entire city and our bedroom communities are covered by the influence of the refinery. It's not just me in the North End who gags on that. It's the stuff you can't see, because they emit not only air pollution, but actual droplets that can get into your garden vegetables. And this is not a good thing for anyone in Regina. We shouldn't be just going about our business saying this is okay. But every mayor in the last 50 years who has come through this city is culpable for this. They're responsible for this. I remember Fougere a few years ago, one of our mayors, when this came up about a new neighborhood going up near the refinery, and this is near me, he said, the refinery's been always good to us. That's all he said. That's the only thing he said to address this major thing. And if I could find a clip of that, I would, but I sure as hell didn't forget it. And it's a major concern for me. and they're not doing anything about it. Every city councilor that has been on council in the last 50 years, when we've known how bad this is, certainly in the last 30 years since that sour gas dump, 35 years or whatever it is, it's 35 years now, they're responsible for this. It's, the hell with the jobs. They can go to hell. I don't care. Let our economy go down. Is it worth dying for? It is not. I don't think anyone would say it's worth dying for jobs. I know people who have cancer. You have to ask, are these people sick because of the refinery? And as sure as hell, they're not going to say, well, it's okay that for the cancer, I'm willing to sacrifice myself because, damn it, we need those jobs.
The Clean Energy Show.